Welcome to All Steelers Talk, your home for everything Pittsburgh Steelers, presented by allsteelers.com.
What is up, Steelers Nation? Thank you guys so much for jumping on this quick live stream. I'm just going to jump on for about a half hour or so, talk about the Pittsburgh Steelers win over the Seattle Seahawks in their preseason opener, 32-25. For anybody who bet the over on 53.5, I'm so sorry you fell victim. I fell victim. It is what it is. For everybody jumping along, I want everybody to toss their questions in the chat. I'm going to answer literally every single one of them for as long as I possibly can. We're going to break down the game. We're going to break down the winners. We're going to break down the losers. Again, as more people are jumping on here, toss your questions in the chat. I'm going to answer pretty much all of them. Let's start with the win. Obviously, a big game. It's a preseason game. You got to take it with a side of caution. But the Pittsburgh Steelers had a lot to prove walking in to Acrisure Stadium for the first time this season, and it all started with the quarterback. Obviously, Mitch Trubisky needed to show that he's capable of winning a football game. And I think he did just that. I think Mitch came out here and said, hey, I'm going to lead a successful drive. It felt like the first time the Pittsburgh Steelers scored on an opening drive in 18 years. And that's not a jab at Ben Roethlisberger. It just felt like it was the first time the Steelers offense started fast in a long, long time. I get it. You're not going to have everybody out there, but still, it was a good start for Mitch Trubisky. It somewhat solidified, hey, the Steelers made a right choice with giving this guy an opportunity to say, hey, you're our starter for the time being. Don't lose the job. I don't think he did lose the job. Mason Rudolph comes in, keeps that score alive, slows down a little bit right before halftime. Kenny Pickett comes in, and we obviously saw what he could do. It was probably the most electrifying play at our preseason game I have seen in a long, long time. I mean, you score with 4 seconds left. Tyler Vaughns, shout out to Tyler Vaughns, because if we're being honest, he should have ran out of bounds. Cody White should have ran out of bounds 3 plays prior. It was not great plays by either of them, but Tyler Vaughns broke a tackle, went for 6, won the game. All about it. Overall, I would say a successful day for both sides of the football, but we're going to dive into each player, each position, each winner, each loser. So again, toss me all your questions. I'll be on here for about a half hour. We'll talk about everybody and everything you guys want to talk about following the preseason game. Does Mason Rudolph make the cut? Yes and no. Mason Rudolph is going to make the cut if the Steelers decide that they're rocking with three active quarterbacks walking into the season. That being said, I think last night showed maybe Kenny Pickett deserves to start taking team 2 reps by himself more consistently. He didn't surpass Mitch Trubisky, at least not yet, but he definitely made an argument to say, hey, look it, you spent a first-round pick on me. I had the best game out of all 3 of them. I worked with a lot of third stringers, a bad offensive line, a really bad offensive line, and Master Teague, who had a great game, but shouldn't have had a great game working behind me. And I won the football game. It wasn't perfect. There were mistakes, but I think Kenny Pickett made a statement to Mike Tomlin and company to say, hey, give me a little bit more time to work with the 2s and kind of showcase you guys what I can do. Stop splitting reps with Mason Rudolph and things like 7 shots and team, and give me the opportunity to prove myself. I think that's what Kenny did. It's not a good time for Mason Rudolph. It was a bad game after that opening drive for Mason Rudolph. I still think he makes the cut if they decide to keep 3 quarterbacks. I also think it might have made a statement to say, maybe if somebody calls, you actually listen. Because I don't think that was an actual case heading into the game. I think that they would never have listened to a phone call. You'll listen to every phone call, but they wouldn't be serious about a phone call for Mason Rudolph until last night. How do we feel about the quarterbacks? Who did the best? Kenny Pickett did the best out of all 3 quarterbacks last night, easily. Mitch Trubisky led a good drive. He worked behind an offensive line that showed they still are not good, especially on the interior. Kendrick Green, I don't believe is the answer, but we'll see what happens there. Mason Cole struggled. I still think Mitch had a good game. He worked on limited reps didn't have Deontay Johnson or Chase Claypool or Pat Freiermuth or Najee Harris. That is a lot to take away from a starting quarterback. Still, he led the team on a good drive. He worked the field well. He showed his athleticism. I thought he played well. Kenny Pickett had the best game. Kenny Pickett came in here and showed everybody exactly why Kenny Pickett was a first-round pick. He's decisive. He's mobile. He makes smart plays. He makes good decisions. Everything you want out of a quarterback. He's still a rookie. He still needs time to develop. I think this situation works out well for him, but he won. People aren't about my Mason Rudolph take. I'll explain my Mason Rudolph take. Mason Rudolph has a lot of fans, and I get that. And I feel as if people are trying to push the narrative that Mason Rudolph should be the starting quarterback because he's earned it. Well, I've watched Mason Rudolph for 4 years, and I think Mason Rudolph is a fine quarterback in the NFL. The problem is Mason Rudolph doesn't do well the higher the stakes are. You put Mason Rudolph in a pressure situation, and 9 times out of 10, he doesn't get out of there successfully. You saw that once things started to slow down for him. He started hot. The offense got a little didn't stay as hot. That's going to continue. You want a quarterback that can take you and say, hey, okay, look at everything else around me is starting to slow down. The energy is fading. We got to pick it back up. Kenny Pickett's a guy that'll pick that back up. Mason Rudolph, as he's shown time and time again, is not the guy to rally a team. He tries. I give him all the effort. He tries, but he doesn't. He just doesn't rally a team. And that doesn't mean he's not a good quarterback. It just means that he's not a starting quarterback on a team that has a lot of development around him. That's what we need to see. George Pickens, absolute dog. I loved that he did the AB dance. He had no idea he did it afterwards. That was pretty awesome. The crowd juicing up Kenny Pickett and everybody else was awesome. I didn't like the crowd booing Mason Rudolph after the fumble. First off, wasn't his fault. He didn't see it coming. Second off, you just don't boo anybody. Like don't boo a guy on your team. Just don't. I remember back in the day, I remember I was at a Jacksonville Jaguars playoff game back in maybe 2008, and I watched people chant, I believe it was Charlie Batch's name when Ben Roethlisberger was in there, and I just thought, why? Why are we doing it? Mason Rudolph's arm had 2 touchdowns dropped in the end zone. I will give you this. Mason should have had 2 touchdowns. The second one was dropped in the end zone. I'm not saying that it's Mason Rudolph's fault. And a lot of people are going to obviously say that I am. The thing with Mason Rudolph, again, is that there is limited spark on what he's capable of doing. There's nothing to overcome. And that's the same thing with Kenny Pickett. Kenny Pickett isn't the starting quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers because right now he's continuing to find that consistent spark. You want to be able to constantly lead a drive. 4th and 1, Master Teague needed to have the handoff there behind a third-string offensive line. It is what it is. You shouldn't have been in that situation. Kenny shouldn't have put you in that situation. That's the spark that you need to continue. Ben Roethlisberger had that spark. You want to know why Ben Roethlisberger was so good at 2-minute? Because he could lead an offense better than anybody out there with the spark. How many wide receivers do the Steelers keep? I think last night there was a strong argument to keep 7. That's a lot. That's too many. I don't think that you ever keep 7. But I'm kind of glad you brought this up. Miles Boykin deserves a roster spot. The dude has done everything you've asked for him. He plays consistent football as a wide receiver. He almost never drops the football. On top of that, he plays special teams, forced a fumble on special teams. And I get it. That was a very confusing play, but that was him. All credit to him. That's exactly what you want out of your 6th guy. Gunner not taking punt returns surprised me, but he had a good game in the slot. And if Calvin Austin's going to miss some time, that's who you're going to replace to play the slot is Gunnar Olszewski. You have to keep him. I think you keep Miles Boykin. I think you keep Miles Boykin as your 6th. But Steven Sims had a game. Steven Sims came out here, said, hey, he found out the day before that he was going to take punt returns. Had a hell of a game returning punts. And then on top of that, had a 40-yard burst on an end around. It's a good game for a guy who was probably the 7th, 8th wide receiver walking into the game. Anthony Miller doesn't play because of a shoulder injury. Calvin Austin's in a boot, so he might miss some time. I'm a fan of Steven Sims. I think that he has an opportunity to possibly sneak his way into this roster. I don't know what else you have to, I don't know what else you have to prove for the rest of this preseason. You have to stay consistent, obviously, but I think that the wide receiver room is so stacked that it's very hard that you have to do something maybe super special to say, hey, I need to be above this. Can we please cut Benny Snell? Jaylen Warren did have a good game, but he fumbled the football, and that's all that Mike Tomlin cared about afterwards. That's all he had to say, was that he made a mistake. That mistake could cost you, and he's got to protect the football better if he's going to make this team. I will say that the special teams tackle that he had was huge because it showed, hey, I am capable of doing this if I put my head into it. Afterwards, he was so excited about that. Jaylen Warren is such a good dude. Like, I talked to him afterwards when we were walking out of the locker room, and I was just asking where he was from, you know, how much family made the trip down. And he said that his stepdad lives in California. They told him 2 days prior that they were coming to the game. They showed up to surprise him. And he also said that when he made the tackle on special teams before that play, he was telling all the vets, like, hey, I'm going to go out there. I'm going to make a play. I'm going to make a play. I'm going to make a play. And then he did it, and he came running back to the sideline. He was so excited to say, hey, I did this. Everybody watched. And he said not everybody saw it, but he was very excited. To touch on what wide receivers do you think will be cut? I think Anthony Miller's injury kind of leaves him on that list, unfortunately. I thought Anthony Miller was having a consistent camp up until the last couple of days were but I don't know what extent that injury is. Outside of that, I don't think Cody White makes the team. Tyler Vaughns is probably a practice squad guy. I would imagine Cody White's a practice squad guy too. And I think Steven Sims is right on that line. And then obviously Tyler Snead's not going to make the team. Christian Blake, the new wide receiver, is not going to make the team. But I would say Steven Sims is that line. He is the guy that if he keeps doing this, maybe he sneaks his way onto the roster. But I would imagine that only comes if Calvin Austin has a lengthy injury. Devin Bush not having any tackles was so upsetting because this was his opportunity to showcase, hey, I could make an impact on the team. The starting defense played an entire quarter. You should have did something. Bush was not involved almost at all on that defense. And Myles Jack at times made good plays. I didn't see enough out of Robert Spillane to say he should have been on top and he should be on top moving forward. But at what point do you start to think Devin Bush really ain't it, and it's time to start rethinking your group? Because on top of that, Mark Robinson had a god-awful game until his sack fumble, which huge play, huge the play of the game, but lost the entire game before that. Buddy Johnson, there were times where Buddy Johnson was consistent, and he was in on pretty much every single tackle. The problem is that every time they ran a pass play, Johnson was spinning around because he had no idea where to be or who to cover. That's super concerning because his athleticism is what Jerry O talked about time and time again when he came in as a rookie last year. And if you can't utilize that in pass coverage, you're not helping your case to move up in the depth chart. So if Devin Bush can't do anything at all, and Robert Spillane needs to be your starter next to Myles Jack, where's your third? Is it Devin Bush and he's just somewhat of a waste of space out there? Or do you hope that Buddy Johnson turns into something? That's a very, very difficult situation for the Steelers to be in. I think way worse coming out of this game than they were going into it when it comes to inside linebacker. I also feel bad for Anthony Miller. You know, thoughts and prayers to him and Calvin Austin. I hope both of them heal quick. Where do you think Kenny Pickett is on the QB depth chart with this performance he had last night? I personally believe he moves up. I don't think that there's anything left to say that he can't do everything that Mason Rudolph can do and more. pretty much showed it all. And yes, it's a preseason game. You got to take it with a grain of salt. You're playing against the third string. I get it. He's not going to surpass Mitch Trubisky. But I think at this point, you start to circulate him into the number 2s during practice this week and see if he could stay consistent. If he could stay consistent, here's the thing. Kenny Pickett's biggest issue coming in was that the game was moving way too fast for him. It has slowed down, and you've seen it slow down. You talk to guys like Jaylen Warren, and he says, you talk to this dude, you're in the huddle with this guy, you're on the field with this guy, you feel like he's been in the league for the last 5-6 years. You talk to Steven Sims, and it's like, yeah, we knew this was possible. We knew what Kenny Pickett was and how good he is. He doesn't need anything else added to that. Kenny's a first-round pick for a reason. Mason Rudolph has 2 guys competing with him for a reason. At some point, you got to look at this situation and say, maybe we test it out, but we'll see what happens. 6 wide receivers on the team is going to be tough, getting the hope that Austin's foot will be all right. I also have the hope. I've heard 2 to 6 weeks, which I get as a gap, but I think that if you could start the season with Austin on IR, Sims makes the roster. There's a lot like that. When it comes to the running backs, is Derek Watt healthy? Because if Derek Watt or Benny Snell needs to be placed on IR, Jaylen Warren has a roster spot. How many inside linebackers do you keep? You usually keep 6, but can Mark Robinson play special teams? How hurt is Marcus Allen's hamstring? Are you going to keep 6? How many outside linebackers do you need to keep? How many safeties do you need to keep? There's a lot of safeties on this team that you want on the field, more than usual. There's a lot of questions, that we're going to get answered in the next week. Cuts are Tuesday at 4:00. I would imagine we get the first visible change to a Steelers lineup come Wednesday morning, and then maybe Tuesday morning, and then we could make a better evaluation. Who's going to start? So this is my prediction moving forward for the preseason. Mitch is going to start game 2, and I think he's going to play longer into game 2, maybe 2 quarters or a quarter and a half. And then it'll likely switch roles where I would say Kenny gets the 2 reps, Mason gets the 3 reps. I don't think that says anything, but that's usually how Mike Tomlin handles the situation. He's handled it like this before, where, you could take it as far back as Mason versus Dobbs. Dobbs actually started a game because that's what Mike Tomlin likes to do. He's got to give everybody a fair opportunity to showcase themselves with multiple different teams in front of them. So I would imagine that is where we go from here. The wide receivers are loaded. Mark Robinson is an inside linebacker. How he came off the edge is an incredible play design. I'm going to give all credit to TA, Mike Tomlin, and Brian Flores, because he came in untouched on that play. Unbelievable. Was lined up at inside linebacker. He was the inside linebacker, worked his way to the edge. Don't know how that happened or why that happened. Wild, great play. Great play by the defense. Great play by Mark Robinson. He's a thumper, dude. He's a thumper. He's got 0 pass ability, pass coverage ability, but the dude will hit you. Roquan Smith would be amazing. The problem is that you're not going to give up a first-round pick and some for Roquan Smith and pay him. You've already paid too many guys on defense. At some point, you just got to move on and figure out moving forward. It's an inside linebacker position that you got to fill next year, unless Robert Spillane comes out here and has a great year and Buddy Johnson proves to be a third. Why is Austin listed as the 3rd string? I wouldn't look into the depth chart. The depth chart means nothing for the Pittsburgh Steelers until week 1 of the regular season. And even then, it really doesn't mean a lot. Austin has been playing with the first team in the slot pretty much the entire training camp, especially in the last week. I would say that's going to stay the same. That's not going to change. The foot injury sucks. Calvin Austin's injury, I've heard, and this is speculation. I've heard that it's 2 to 6 weeks. I've also heard the name of the injury. I'm not willing to say it because it came from a secondhand source, and I'm a journalist. So at the end of the day, I have to trust my sources, and I don't trust a secondhand source. I never will. I'm just going to say that I've heard it's 2 to 6 weeks. That I trust. I don't know about the rest of them. Who's going to start next week, Kenny or Mason? I think Mitch Trubisky is going to play a long time next week as the starter, and then I think Kenny's going to play next, and I would say Mason probably gets the most reps of week 2 in the second half, and we'll see where it goes from there. Didn't Akella Witherspoon get hurt? He did get hurt. He flashed a thumbs up. So he went into the medical tent, came off the field, went into the medical tent, got evaluated. It's a shoulder injury, came out of the medical tent and gave a big thumbs up to the crowd. So I would imagine that means he's okay. He was listed as questionable to return. So that's all good signs. We should feel good about Akella Witherspoon. Trey Norwood is a dog, and I am so excited for Trey Norwood to have a big season this year. Everybody sleeps on Trey Norwood, including the coaches. I don't understand why this guy. I mean, Demonte KZ has a resume. I get that, but Trey Norwood could play all over the field. He's a chess piece. If you need him to line up at safety, he can play safety. He loves to blitz anymore. I mean, this dude is the Cam Sutton 2.0, and I think he's got potential to be very, very good in the NFL. How this guy slipped to a 7th round pick is mind-blowing, because from the second he stepped on a field, you realize this guy just loves football and he loves to work. You got to love that. You can always find Bush standing around the pile. You always could find Bush standing around the pile. Anthony McFarland, thank you for bringing this one up. And Jaylen Warren was a beast. This is my take on the Steelers running back. Anthony McFarland has an opportunity to prove he's the number 2 runner on this team, and I think he's going to do so. Benny Snell is as reliable of a football player as you need. Okay. If Benny Snell wasn't in Pittsburgh, he'd be a contributor to an offense somewhere else. He will always have a spot on a 53-man roster within this NFL. Always. He plays special teams, he pass protects, he catches the football, and he's a power runner. Unfortunately, he's lined up behind an even bigger power runner who can do all of those things as well. Benny Snell is a guy that you want on your football team. You just don't want him on your football team in Pittsburgh because you have Najee Harris. He still serves a very capable role. Anthony McFarland can prove to be the 2, and I think he's going to prove to be the 2. Meanwhile, Jaylen Warren has to prove that he can do everything else besides run the football. He has to be able to pass protect consistently. He has to be able to catch the football, which he showed last night, and that was good. He has to be able to play special teams. He has to be able to do everything else outside of being a running back in order to bump Benny Snell. And if he can't do that, or even if he can't do one of them as well as Benny Snell can do them, Snell's got a spot on this team, and it's well-deserved because you need those guys. If Anthony McFarland's your 2 and Jaylen Warren's just here to be a power guy, he's not going to touch the field anyways on offense. Very limited reps for him as a 3rd-string running back. You got to be able to do everything else. That's where Benny shines. And I get that that's tough to see because when you're evaluating a running back, you want to see how they do running the football. But in Pittsburgh, Najee Harris is going to touch the football 300 times. Anthony McFarland might touch it 100 times. That 3rd guy has to be able to do everything else besides run the football. That's how it has to be looked at. Was very disappointed with James Daniels and Dan Moore. I would say I was more disappointed with Kendrick Green and Mason Cole. They looked terrible. But yeah, James Daniels got smoked on that one play. The offensive line, your expectations for the offensive line should be exactly like they were last year. It's going to be really bad. Really, really bad. Even if they get 5 spots better, they're still going to be really bad. This offense is not ready. This offensive line is not ready to be good. So I would keep those expectations very, very low. What do I think about Pickett 1, or Pickett 2, Trubisky 1, Mason 3? I think that's how you walk into the season, because, and I don't think, like, even if Mason is the number 2 on the depth chart, if Mitch goes down, or if for some reason Mitch isn't playing well and you have to change quarterbacks, you're going to look at Kenny first. If you're the Pittsburgh Steelers, you're going to look at Kenny first and say, are you ready to play right now? If you are, you're starting. If you're not, Mason's starting, because Mason can control a situation. Things aren't moving so fast for him. He can manage the clock. You don't want to toss Kenny out there too early. I think this is the perfect situation for him. Easy. Pickens looks great. Need to get an offensive pass interference. Yeah. Better than Sutton. Mark, hit me up about who you believe is better than Sutton. Trey Norwood. Trey Norwood at being what Cam Sutton was, yes, probably. But Cam Sutton is a very reliable outside cornerback, and he's going to prove it this year. I fully believe that one. Steelers versus Bengals regular season. Very excited for that one. Benny Snell has no vision, and he is a special teamer, but that's what you want for a backup quarterback in Pittsburgh. That's what they're looking for. You're not going to utilize your third string running back or even your second string run. McFarland's best opportunity is because he plays in the slot, he plays out wide, and he plays at halfback. That's why he's going to get touches. It's not because he's going to be running the football. Najee's going to be pretty much the only one running the football. Your other guys have to be able to contribute on special teams. If you can't do that, you don't have a spot in Pittsburgh. The saying Danny Smith has to be your best friend is very real. Very, very real. Every player knows it, that Danny Smith has to be your best friend for you to make this football team. Benny Snell and Danny Smith are about as tight as they get. It's not going to be there. Kendrick Green is Zach Banner's from last year. Jeez. What else we got here? The only reason, he did play the most, and I get that Kenny Pickett did play the most. 3 cornerbacks: Cam Sutton, Ahkello Witherspoon, and Levi Wallace. I will say this. I love Cam Sutton on the outside. I think he's playing very well at training camp, like incredibly well at training camp. I just don't think that the Steelers defense is going to allow him to do that, which stinks because I think he's a good outside corner. He doesn't have the athleticism to keep up with guys. He just doesn't have that speed. But he's a very good outside corner if you put him in the right situation. The problem is that Arthur Millette is bad. It is so bad. He could hit people all day long. You need him to blitz off the edge. Honestly, if he was bigger, he'd be an incredible edge rusher. If you put him out there just to blitz, just to go hit somebody, 10 times out of 10 times, I want him on the football field. But you're a cornerback, and at times you have to play coverage, and he just can't do that at all. Not in the slot, not in the nickel. He just doesn't have it in him. So I think Cam Sutton might get forced inside to be the slot guy, and then Levi Wallace and Ahkello Witherspoon on the outside. I love that situation. I wish Cam Sutton had a real opportunity to play on the outside. Warren can do everything that McFarland can do. That's not true. Anthony McFarland lines up all over the field. He's faster than Jaylen Warren. He's more elusive than Jaylen Warren. Jaylen Warren runs north and south as well as anybody. The dude puts his head down, and he will run into every single person. Anthony McFarland's got splash play written all over him. And Jaylen Warren does too, but in different senses. And in Matt Canada's offense, you want those quick, twitchy guys who could cut back and have incredible vision. And Anthony McFarland's got both of those about as well as you could possibly have. Can the offensive line get better midway through the season? I hope so, but I don't think so. I think the Steelers offense is designed better to accommodate a bad offensive line. So I think you'll see more success on the offense because of that. But I still don't think that guys like Najee Harris and Anthony McFarland and Jaylen Warren and Benny Snell are going to have an easy time running the football this season, because that offensive line is just really bad, and it's not going to get better. You need time to build into it. It's all about investments. The investment you put into something is what you're going to get out of it. The Pittsburgh Steelers haven't put a big investment outside of James Daniels, I guess, into that offensive line in a long time. You have to start putting investments in there in order for it to get better. Do you think Devin Bush will continue to wear the green dot? I think for right now, yes, but I think Myles Jack will wear that green dot come week 1, because I'm not fully convinced Devin Bush is going to start. What's your take on Master Teague? Jeremiah, thank you so much for this question, because Master Teague had himself a night. This dude came into camp. First off, Master Teague originally looked like the slowest running back of all time. People talk about Benny Snell and they have negative things to say about Benny Snell. Master Teague looked way slower. How he ran a 4.4 shocked me. But when he lowers that shoulder, man, he'll run through everybody. I think that last night he gave himself an opportunity to make a practice squad spot. I think last night he gave himself an opportunity to gain a little bit more runs. He definitely surpassed Mateo Durant, although one hell of a pass block by Mateo Durant on that second last drive. Incredible pickup by him. That's what you love to see. But I think Master Teague definitely did enough. I mean, what did Teague finish with? He finished the night 6 rushes for 31 yards. It's a good night, if you ask me. It's definitely a good night. I think that right now he'll get more shots. He's just got to stay consistent. He's got to have good game after good game after good game to make that work. Do you think Connor Hayward will get more playing time than Zach Gentry? No, I don't. I think Connor Hayward's still fighting for a roster spot over Kevin Rader. And I don't think he's going to be heavily involved in the offense. I think he'll be a little bit involved in the offense, but Zach Gentry is having a very good training camp. He looks much more consistent, much more adjusted to the tight end position, which I get it. It's been a long time of him playing tight end. And by this point, he should be way more comfortable, but he put on some weight, a little bit more weight. He bulked up. He feels way better catching a football. I think he's looked good at camp. And he's a great blocker. That's the one thing. Connor Hayward struggles at blocking, and Zach Gentry thrives in it. So that's something that you have to take into consideration. I think Zach Gentry has a heavy role in this offense moving forward. But Connor Hayward did look good last night. Kenny Pickett saying that he wanted Connor Hayward in there on the 2-point conversion speaks volumes. And I think that's a very big boost of confidence that Mike Tomlin and company is going to listen to. And I don't think they want Connor Hayward to be picked up anywhere else. So I think that gives him an advantage to make this roster over Kevin Rader. I'm 61 years old and Arthur Millet can't cover me. Bron, you're not wrong there. You're not wrong there. I'd like to see your 53-man roster. I dropped one right before training camp started. You could definitely check that one out on allsteelers.com. Just click on the All Steelers Plus tab. It's deep probably, but it's definitely in there. I'll drop another. I believe I drop another one the day before the third preseason game. I'll definitely get back to you on that. Just make sure that you're keeping up with the live stream. Also, for everybody who hasn't yet, 2 videos ago, our last All Steelers Talk episode that aired on Thursday's All Steelers Talk episode, we're giving away a Minka jersey, a signed Minka Fitzpatrick jersey. So make sure you go drop the hashtag Minka jersey, hashtag Minka jersey in the comment section from Thursday's episode, where Minka is going to pick a number of how many comments they are, 1 to whatever. Minka will pick that number. That number will win the jersey. So make sure that you go do that. You can't, if you do it here, it doesn't count. So you got to go do it on Thursday's episode. The thing with Connor as a fullback is that Connor struggles at blocking, and that's the biggest thing. He's got the body for a fullback, but he doesn't have the footwork or the hand placement as a consistent blocker yet. I think that's something he's got to work on a lot. Devin Bush in preseason form, great comment there. Let's go Steelers. Appreciate you. Tom, I'm glad that you got to see Jaylen Warren. That's the dude's impressive. I will say that my favorite thing about Jaylen Warren is that he is a football guy. You talk about, for anybody who's a Pitt fan, Pat Narduzzi says it constantly. He's a football guy. He's a football player. He's a football player. He's a football player. Jaylen Warren is a football player. 10 out of 10 football player. What did I think about the DB's performance? I thought it was good for the most part. Arthur Millette had a very bad game, very much so struggled. I thought DeMonte KZ had a good game, still struggles at tackles from time to time, but thought he looked fine. I thought Kello Witherspoon played well early. I thought Levi Wallace filled in well. Cam Sutton, I think, is very, very reliable. Trey Norwood had himself a great game. If Trey Norwood did not move himself into more first team reps, I'd be shocked. So I'm all about that. How often do the Steelers line up in the eye? Very, very seldom. Very, very seldom. Connor Hayward. I'm loving all these Connor Hayward talks. Do you think the defense will be elite? This is a good question. I want to say yes, but I want to say it's too early to say yes. And that's because last night the defensive line looked atrocious. The running defense looked atrocious. It looked just like last season. I think you got to find a solution for Devin Bush. You got to find a way to get him off the field. He can't be here anymore. He just can't. He can't be a reliable name on your defense. But having Larry Ogunjobi in there, having Tyson Alualu back, and having Cam Hayward there is going to make a huge difference for that defensive line. I didn't like what I saw out of Henry Mondu. I was expecting more from him. I did like what I saw out of Isaiah Loudermilk. Didn't like what I saw out of Chris Wormley. I would like to see Isaiah play more reps, maybe DeMarvin Leal play a little bit more reps, and then you got to figure out a backup nose tackle if Monty Adams is out for the foreseeable future. That's very, very difficult. I get that because it's at this point in the offseason, you're dealing with scraps, but you have to find it because Tyson Alualu could play 1 or 2 reps a series. You can't have him out there for 10, 15 reps a series. You have to find somebody else to clog up the middle who's reliable and run. And I don't think that's Isaiah Loudermilk, but you have to find somebody. That's your best solution. Robert Spillane was not so hot either. I agree. I think the inside linebackers outside of Miles Jack looked very concerning. Would acquiring Roquan Smith make the Steelers defense elite? Yeah, it definitely would, but I don't think that you could. I don't think you could do that. I just don't think you could do that. I don't think that you could pay Roquan Smith and justify it if you're the Steelers. And on top of that, you'd have to give up so much. Like, you'd have to give up a first-round pick, probably Devin Bush, and probably a third-round pick on top of that. And really, they're just like taking Bush. And that's if they didn't watch the game last night. If they watched the game, they're not taking Devin Bush at all. It would be such a long shot for them to go and get Roquan Smith. I think DeMonte KZ will get significant snaps this season. I really, really do. I think he's played well. He's a playmaker. He's got the resume to prove like, hey, I should be here. So I think he will. I think Trey Norwood's going to play a lot of snaps too. I like that. I like their ability to intermingle defensive backs. A second-round pick for Devin Bush. That's wishful thinking. Very, very wishful thinking. I think at this point you might be lucky to get a 7th. Which defensive linemen don't make it? So the bottom of the barrel ones: Donovan Jeter, Carlos Davis, Khalil Davis, those ones off the bat. Henry Mondu might make it, but I think a lot of that relies on how injured Monty Adams is. I want to say that's about it, unless I'm missing guys. But I would say those three are locks to get cut. I think Donovan Jeter gets cut like Tuesday. Yeah, Bush is killing his Bush for a third. I don't think that would happen. Bush is killing his trade value. Tyler, no worries, my man. What did we think about Kenny Pickett? I thought Kenny Pickett had a phenomenal game. Starting 10 for 10 was as good as you get. The game looked slow to him. That's what I wanted to see. I wanted to see, can Kenny Pickett slow the game down with the atmosphere that he was going to be in? It was a loud stadium. There was a lot of Kenny chants. The energy was very high at Acrisure Stadium, Heinz Field, Acrisure Stadium, whatever you want to call it, on the North Shore. It was a situation Kenny probably has never been in. And I get it, it's a preseason game, whatever, but it's still a different environment. Even Pitt's biggest games, a different environment than what he saw last night. Different teammates, different guys he's playing with, a much shorter lifespan playing with these guys. Doesn't have a guy like Jordan Addison to rely on. This was a big stage for Kenny Pickett. I liked that the game was so slow to him that he was able to make decisive decisions. That was huge. Larry Ogunjobi did not play last night. Neither did Cam Hayward or Tyson Alualu, just because they're vets. I doubt that they'll play at all during the preseason. How do you fix Devin Bush's problem? I don't think you do. I think Devin Bush lost the it. I think that there's an it with football, that there's a demeanor of, I'm just going to be a football player. I don't think Devin Bush has that anymore. It's not that he lacks instincts. It's not that he's slow. It's nothing else. It's the it. He doesn't have the it. I think Brian Flores was your best opportunity to fix that. But I just don't think that he has it anymore. I think that he's lost it. He might be a solid contributor off the bench, maybe, if you limit his reps. But I just don't think he's a starting quality linebacker in the NFL these days. And I don't know if he ever will be. What will the depth chart look like at wide receiver to start the season? So it'll be Deontay, Chase, and George Pickens as the starter. Chase will start in the slot. We're going to imagine Calvin Austin's injury is not big, and he'll be back at some point. When he returns, if he's back to 100%, I would say Calvin Austin's rookie season is going to be much less exciting than we expected it to be now. That sucks. I feel terrible, but look, I'm going to blame the fields at Latrobe, for being honest. I don't know if everybody's been up there, how many people have been up there, but man, dude, it rains almost all the time, and those fields are just disgusting. So I'm going to blame that on his injury. I didn't see it. Nobody was there. It was a closed practice, so I couldn't tell you what happened, but I'm going to say it was the fields. If Calvin Austin's season is much less exciting, it will be the second stringers. Gunner will be the second in the slot. Then if you keep 6, Miles Boykin will be that other guy. If Calvin Austin has to go on IR for some time, I would imagine Steven Sims is the other guy. And then Sims is another slot guy. He could play the outside, but you're going to use him in the slot. But I would say George Pickens, Deontay Johnson on the outside, Chase Claypool on the inside. Gunner's like the primary backup to start the season. Pickett came through last night. Did I hear Calvin's injury is bad? No. So I've heard of multiple things. I am only confident in one thing that I've heard, and that is that it's roughly 2 to 6 weeks, which is a big gap. And usually when it's a larger than a 2-week gap, that means that they really don't know. But I would say I would say that's the only source that I felt comfortable with reporting, and we'll just kind of wait to hear the rest. Well, I'm hoping to get to talk to Calvin on Monday a little bit, but we'll see what happens. Is the center position solidified? Yeah, I mean, Mason Cole is going to start at center, but he didn't play well last night, so it's very concerning. I just think the offensive line as a whole have very low expectations for them coming into the season, and just kind of hope for the best because it's going to be a bumpy ride. It's going to be a bumpy ride. This is why you need mobile quarterbacks, and the Steelers have mobile quarterbacks, which is good. I had no idea that Gunner was good. I didn't watch the cheat tree. It's unless they play the Steelers. So Gunner only has 9 career receptions in the regular season. I don't know what happened in New England either, but from the second this man has stepped on a field in a Pittsburgh Steelers uniform, he is always wide open. Him being that wide open in the end zone last night to start the game off doesn't surprise anybody who's watched him at practice. This dude is always wide open. It blows my mind that he has never contributed to an offense. I think he's pretty much a lock to make the team, and I would say he's going to play significant reps for the Steelers on offense. I mean, good for the Patriots that they missed out on him, right? If you're a Steelers fan, you're pretty hyped that the Patriots missed out on Gunnar Olszewski and somehow he ended up in Pittsburgh. Gotta love the country boys out of Jijima State or wherever the heck he's from. Which quarterback were you most impressed with last night? Kenny Pickett, easily Kenny Pickett. I thought that the game was slow for him. I loved that the game was slow for him. Mitch Trubisky would be my number 2. He needed to come out and do exactly what he did. He needed to come out, throw a touchdown, lead a touchdown drive, get the Steelers off to a hot start. I think that changed the entire atmosphere of the game. So I would say I'm very impressed with those two. I thought Mason played well too. Didn't think he played bad. Was much less excited for him than the other two. Again, don't like that fans booed him. Don't want to see that again. But again, Mason was the same. Mason Rudolph was the same old Mason last night. Exactly. Oh, I like this one. So I got to head off. I'm going to a couple of things before, I got to go back to Latrobe tomorrow, but I appreciate everybody jumping on. But I am going to end with this one right here. Remember when a first-year rookie replaced Tommy Maddox? I do remember that. Is Pickett in a similar situation or maybe not? This is my take on if Mitch Trubisky cannot play in the season successfully. If Mitch, for some reason, needs to be replaced, we're going to say week 3 of the NFL season, of the regular season. The Steelers are going to look, and if the season started right now, we're going to say the season starts today, Mitch has, in 3 weeks, needs to be replaced for one reason or another. If that happened, the Pittsburgh Steelers would look at Kenny Pickett, evaluate him, and say, is this guy ready to take on an NFL team right now? I'm not saying, is he ready in a year? I'm not saying, is he ready in 6 months? Is he ready today? If the answer is yes in their eyes, he would be the guy to replace Mitch. If the answer is no in their eyes and he needs a little bit more time, even if that time was 2 weeks, 3 weeks, if he needed more time, Mason is the guy to replace Mitch Trubisky. That's how I look at it. A lot could change in the next 2 preseason games, but if it started today, they would look at Kenny Pickett, and if he wasn't 100% ready to lead this team in every facet, Mason would get the first go. That's how it would go. And then I'll end it off here for my boy Daniel. Will Jaylen Warren make the 53-man roster? I would say a lot of that depends on the injuries to Benny Snell and Derek Watt. If both of them need to be placed on IR, or if even one of them needs to be placed on IR, Jaylen Warren has a roster spot. But his fumble last night is all that stuck out to Mike Tomlin. He's got to clean that up. If he's clean the next 2 games and has huge special teams plays, huge special teams plays, this guy needs to lead the team in special teams tackles. Maybe makes a great block, catches a nice pass. I think he's got a real opportunity to find himself in there. So we'll see. Kenny stealing the QB1 job, I would say is not going to happen, because I don't think that Kenny could play lights out. Mitch is going to play consistent. And if Mitch plays consistent, he's the starting quarterback. You're not going to toss Kenny out there. I think it's the perfect situation for Kenny Pickett. Allow Mitch Trubisky to lead this team because he's not going to lose you a bunch of games. Like Mitch Trubisky's not going to send you to a 2-10 or 2-15 season. He's not going to do that. Let Kenny take all the pressure away from him because come week 1, nobody's going to be talking about Kenny Pickett anymore until Mitch Trubisky sucks. If that's the case, if he doesn't suck, then that's all the pressure gone from Kenny Pickett. Allow him to develop into the NFL. The Steelers have a good plan for him. I think it's one that they should stick to until they can't stick to it anymore. Kenny can play lights out, and I hope he does play lights out. But I would say it's going to take Mitch to lose the job, not Kenny to win it. It'll take Kenny to prove that, hey, come the regular season, just like I said before, come the regular season, if Mitch needs to be replaced for one reason or another, Kenny playing lights out will say, hey, I'm ready. If he doesn't play lights out, they're going to evaluate both sides and say it's either him because he's 100% ready or it's Mason because Kenny's not 100% ready. That's what we're going to be looking at. All righty, everybody. Thank you guys so much for jumping on. I appreciate all the questions. I appreciate all the time. Please enjoy your Sunday. Training camp starts Monday, so check out allsteelers.com for my daily quarterback notebook, my daily takeaways, and then obviously all the news that surrounds the Pittsburgh Steelers. As always, I appreciate you. Subscribe to the YouTube, youtube.com/allsteelerstalk, and like this video for more. Again, appreciate you. Enjoy your weekend. Peace.